Hi, this is Katie with Empowering Astrology, and this is the eclipses of December 19th and January 2020. I like to, every 6 months we have this big check-in with the eclipses, and it's a good time to see what part of our life needs our attention and what is, let's say, opening up for us, changing for us over the coming months. So how do we manage these energies of change? So as I record this is December 19th, 2019. Here we are at the end of a year, and these eclipses, they straddle both 2019 and 2020. So it doesn't have quite that clean, 1 month. It's kind of spanning over into 2 months. Again, my name is Katie Sweetman, and I'm here in Brooklyn, New York. I am a astrologer and psychic medium. My work, the umbrella that I work under is something called Empowering Astrology, and I created it in 2010, which, yes, it means Empowering Astrology is almost 10 years old. I created it because at the time there wasn't, let's say, the type of voice, the type of conversation about astrology that I was looking for. So I created it. And of course, astrology has changed a lot in the last 10 years. And so a lot of other new voices, which is great. And my whole thing is about how do we use the planets to transform in our best self? Because I believe that when we were born, let's say the natal chart, that exact map of the heavens at the moment that you're born gives us let's say, a guide to reach our fullest and highest potential. So this is just the quick agenda for tonight, or when you're watching the replay. You can take a pause if you're watching the replay and just kind of go over the structure of what we're going to cover. The first being the introduction. So eclipses, they talk about our story of change. Now, you have to understand that life is never this static, linear, nothing happens story. Like, we need things that, let's say, force us to take action, to make different choices. And I believe that eclipses are one of those agents that kind of keep the story of our life going. This is a picture of a solar eclipse in case you've never seen one. So when an eclipse happens, and as I record this, I believe we're a little less than a week from a solar eclipse. So we're in this really interesting time. There's a sense that things are changing and shifting. So this idea that eclipses, they open a vortex, this gateway that we go through. Every 6 months this happens. So this is not something that it comes out of the blue or we haven't dealt with. Eclipses, we had these eclipses, for example, we had eclipses back in July of 2019. So here we are 6 months later, and we're continuing the story. The metaphor that I often use for eclipses, if you follow what I write on empoweringastrology.com or on my Facebook page or on my Instagram, is that eclipses are like we are watching a theatrical performance, except this theatrical performance is our life. And there's a sense of like one act is coming to a close, and then the stagehands are in the background. They're getting ready to move the set. You've got a certain cast of actors that some are preparing to leave the set while others are preparing to come in. And I like this metaphor because it allows us to kind of take that necessary step back from our life and to see it as something that's unfolding. We are, of course, a participant in this drama of our life, but we are also able to see it from those outside eyes. And so if we can think about how eclipses are rearranging the set piece of our life, they are introducing a new act, bringing new people in. Let's say it demystifies it a little bit. But for some people, eclipses can be quite dramatic, and it's a very new, introduction of a new set, and new cast of characters come in. So sometimes that's when that change of scenery becomes very different. the thing that we need to keep in mind as we go through eclipse season is that a solar eclipse, our connection to the sun is momentarily cut. A lunar eclipse, it's momentarily cut. And I'll show you in a few moments, or a few minutes rather, what does that look like, because we need to understand the astronomy of eclipses in addition to the astrology of eclipses. And when this connection is cut, like, that's powerful. We no longer can see the sun. We can, the moon is a different shade. It's this color red, because the light is bouncing off of it in a different way. So eclipses have a reputation, and this reputation goes beyond astrology. The ancients, of course, can you imagine 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 3,000 years ago, looking up into the sky, and suddenly the sun turns into a shadow and turns into a black hole. Then the daytime turns into nighttime. You can imagine that that was a pretty terrifying event until they knew the, let's say, the physics behind it, the mechanics behind it. But it is something that we do see in astrology that coincides with personal milestones. It coincides with changes. This could be changes in direction, changes in career. So when I sit down as an astrologer and I'm looking at a chart, let's say for a client, or just looking at my own charts, for example, I'm looking to see where the eclipses are. It's one of the first things I actually look at, beyond the sun, the moon, and the rising sign, because it puts me into a narrative of that person's life that's unfolding throughout the year, or maybe it started the year before, or it's going into the new year. But it's this story of change that this person, or myself, is undergoing. And where am I going to see potentially those personal milestones, depending on where the eclipses are showing up in the chart. So eclipses can sometimes speak to these like quick rises of fame and fortune, and also falls from grace. There's this idea that sometimes when an eclipse happens in the chart, or aspects of planet, for example, that planet is, let's say, gobbled up. And so sometimes you will see eclipses trailing, let's say, a public figure that has something going on that is either rising them up into a position of power or taking them out of a position of power. It's not uncommon to see major changes in governments, like the heads of governments, around eclipses. This is just a little side note. So as I was saying a few moments ago, when you follow where the eclipses are, that's going to tell you what the story is, and where, let's say, over a longer period of time, what's that story arc. I know it's empowering astrology, everybody, which means that we can work with the eclipses, but we also need to understand that there are certain things beyond our control. I can't stop the sun and the moon, neither can you. I cannot stop the seasons. I cannot stop the planets from moving. Those are the things we can't control. And eclipses, because they kind of ping that energy of fate and change, it's a reminder that us mere humans, we are actors in a drama that we're not necessarily always the lead in, or rather in control in. So there's an element, and we'll go into this further into the presentation, of how can we work with the energies of eclipses while knowing that there's certain things that are beyond our control. So when we can know where the eclipses are, we can start to align ourselves. And the example I was giving a few moments ago, if you know that the eclipses are activating the part of your chart that talks about home and family, and let's say where you live, maybe you're thinking about making a move, and here comes the eclipses. And you know that, wow, I'm entering in a time where it's more likely that I may move. Maybe you feel more at ease or more at peace about making that change. It's just something to keep in mind.